You're listening to The Moose and the Loose, your 10 minutes action-packed financial podcast with your host, Mikey Hu. Hey, what's up, Market Moose? Mike from The Moose on the Loose. Happy Wednesday. Before we start today, I just want to let you know we're going to have like a summer schedule for the upcoming weeks up until probably around like mid-August. The reason being, well, quite simple. I am leaving shortly for Peru. And as you can tell, I mean, it's going to be hard for me to record 10-minute podcasts in high altitude, like hiking the Machu Picchu. And I kind of like want to focus on my time with my family at that point. So I will record 3 episodes instead of 5 per week. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So you're going to have like 2 stock market related and then 1 about retirement every week throughout that period. And we're going to go back to regular schedule around mid-August, something like that. I just didn't want to ghost you for like 3 weeks, but at the same time, recording 5 episodes a week was way too much. So anyways, I hope that you will enjoy your summertime as much as I will, and then we're gonna come back full strength. But anyways, we do have an episode today about like cash payout ratios being negative, and sometimes we see like also the classic payout ratio being negative, and that freaks out a lot of investors, and I totally get it because it's strange, right? The company that I'm going to talk about today has a cash payout ratio of minus 372%. Yeah, that's like almost minus 400%. Cash is king, right? We keep talking about that, like follow the free cash flow, follow cash flow from operation, use the free cash flow payout ratio just to know like how much money is left to pay the dividend. So how can you invest in a company that actually has a super great dividend triangle? So revenue over the past 5 years grew at an annualized growth rate of 5.5%. So mid-single digit revenue growth, very stable year over year over the past 5 years. For earnings per share, it's even better. It's 8% for the past 5 years, annualized growth rate. 8%. That's great, like high single digit grower. So now we're looking at a stock that shows a good potential for revenue growth, a good potential for earnings growth, and guess what? The dividend kept on increasing. Annualized growth rate 5.3% over the past 5 years. So incredibly stable. As you can see, it's like very aligned. Like the three metrics are growing almost at the same pace. Actually, it's always better when you see earnings growing faster than the dividend. This means that the payout ratio, the classic payout ratio based on earnings, will be good. Actually, when you look at it, payout ratio is around 64%, so incredibly well. The past 5 years, total return, so stock price appreciation plus the dividend, up 120%. That's better than the TSX. So if you had invested in XIU, tracking the TSX 60, your return would have been 99%. If you were going to for VFV, tracking the S&P 500, that would have been up 110. So this company is up 120%, great payout ratio, great dividend triangle. So the revenue, the earnings, and the dividend per share is growing steadily. But the cash payout ratio is disgusting at minus 372. So what's the cash? Like what's happening here? Well, the business is Hydro One, ticker H.TO. So then by definition, what that negative cash payout ratio tells us is the company burns more cash flow than it generates. So not a good thing, right? So you may increase your revenue, you may show at because earnings per share is like profits on paper, but the real cash flow, not enough to run the business plus pay the dividend. And yet the company keeps on increasing the dividend. Investors keeps on buying the stock. So how can you make sense out of that, right? So first, you have to go back to the definition of payout ratios and how they are calculated. And the first things first is to understand that none of the payout ratio calculations are perfect. If you go for the classic payout ratio, so the dividend divided by the earnings per share, that's super easy, right? Do numbers, boom, you get your payout ratio. Well, it's based on earnings, and earnings are calculated based on generally accepted accounting principles, the GAAP principles. So if you look at a payout ratio for Enbridge, for example, I just did an episode about them last week. Current payout ratio on like the classic payout ratio is at 158%. Completely out of whack, right? That's kind of crazy. And it's not the first time that Enbridge shows a payout ratio above 100%, but and still is a super steady dividend grower, like 30 years of dividend increases. So don't tell me that it's not sustainable. It is sustainable. The thing is, you should not necessarily just look at the payout ratio, but put it into context. So that's the key. For Hydro One, when I talk about the cash payout ratio, well, that's the dividend paid minus cash flow from operation, but the cash flow from operation minus the capital expenditure and the preferred dividend paid. So the problem here, as you can tell, is the capital expenditure. Most of the time, when a business has a high capex, well, they will get into more debt to finance that capex. That's the whole point, right? So we have big projects. We're going to invest billions into them. So we're going to borrow money, and that borrowed money is just going to be using leverage to make like more cash flow down the road and more earnings down the road. So once you understood that, now it's time to dig a little bit deeper. And this is what we do at DSR. When numbers are strange, we dig deeper for you. We do the hard work so you don't have to do it. So that's pretty cool, right? At Dividend Stocks Rock, this is what we do. We investigate for you. So first, you have to understand like what's Hydro One is doing. What's the playbook? So it's a 99% regulated utilities in Ontario. So their only way to grow their business revenue and earnings is actually to increase their rate, right? And to justify the rate increase, well, usually it goes through capital expenditure. So they go see the regulator. They say, oh, we intend to invest in CapEx 1.3 to 1.6 billion per year through 2027. And then management says, well, when we're going to present that plan to regulators, chances are we're going to be able to increase our earnings per share growth by 6 to 8% every year. So as you can see, pretty much aligned with what just happened over the past 5 years. So your dividend will continue to be safe because the company is getting a little bit more debt to invest into their maintenance of their network, improving like the service, expanding the service as well, and of course, justifying the rate increase with that. So it's important to understand also the industry. So you understand the business model, but also the industry. Many utilities will show a negative cash payout ratio. And if you look right now, you look at Emera, you look at Fortis, you look at Capital Power that I just discussed yesterday, actually. Not yesterday, but on Monday, they all show negative cash payout ratio because they're all in the same position. They have huge capex, and that capex is financed by debt. So what the cash payout ratio does not include is the financing, which kind of makes sense also because you don't want to finance your dividend down the road. And one thing that is important is while you now understand the business, you understand that the dividend is safe and it's all part of like a growth plan, it's all good. But keep in mind, a negative cash payout ratio or a negative payout ratio. So the negative payout ratio would be to illustrate that the company is losing money, like negative earnings per share, and then the payout ratio would be negative as well, which in both cases, not good. Losing money on earnings per share or being negative in free cash flow, it's not something that you want for the long run. It's not sustainable forever, right? And here's the example. While Hydro One is an amazing utility company, it's super stable, the dividend is 100% safe, but the debt went from 10 billion on their balance sheet in 2016 to 15 in 2025. So over the past like 9-10 years, it grew up by like 50%. nothing is completely alarming here, but just to show you that at one point that debt will have to stabilize and eventually go down, because you cannot just keep on borrowing more and more money every year just to finance your projects. It's kind of like a never ending cycle until one day you wake up and you are the CEO of Bell or Algonquin, and you definitely borrowed way too much and you cannot sustain your dividend growth anymore. And we don't want that, right? So Hydro One is far from being there. But again, you have to keep in mind negative payout ratio. You go to do an investigation to learn a little bit more, to understand what's happening. And then you monitor that part and you monitor long-term debt, because at one point that company must make a shift, generate more cash flow, and pay down the debt on their balance sheet to make it more sense, right? So I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. If you like the Moose on the Loose, please take a second, tell your friend about it. Forward any link on the moosemarkets.com. You have the podcast there. You have it on Spotify. You have it on Apple Podcasts. Just take 2 minutes, share it with a friend, share it with a family. I'm sure a lot of more people will enjoy it if you enjoy it too. So, all right, Moose, that's enough for today. We're going to talk next time on Friday because it's summer schedule. We're going to talk about how to plan your trip with ChatGPT, like a lot of things that I've been using as of late with great results. So, all right, stay tuned and stay invested.
Hey, welcome to the disclaimer. If you're listening to the Moose and the Loose, you cannot really expect me to give you buy or sell recommendation or financial advice, right? You're here for fun, you're here for information and some entertainment. But I am not your financial advisor, I am not your broker, so therefore I'm not liable if you're losing money after listening to the podcast. If you're looking for some advice, go see a professional. If not, you can enjoy this show and do your due diligence after it.